Whenever Scotland beat, especially England, right? They always go out, they get absolutely smashed. But how do you like keep their heads level? Because like a lot of the time, I feel like, especially in the Six Nations, Scotland will beat England, and that's the hurdle. And then they're like, right, we've done it. We've completed it. We don't need any more. Like, how do you keep them motivated after that big pinnacle game?
Yeah, well, that's a really interesting space, really, because emotional peaks and stuff like that. It's very hard to. It's probably almost impossible, really, to back up if you have a huge emotional peak one week, for example, whether that's against England. It's very very hard to replicate that again to the same standards. Whether you're going into playing France or Ireland, whoever it is, and so it's like what I try to do is like you mix it up. So if you've had that emotional peak, one week, let's say it's against England. If you're going against France, maybe really sort of hone in on like either the technical or the tactical side, and then you try and move away from that emotional side, and everybody's got fresh things in their mind and excited to play the game. And I think that was one of the great sort of learnings, I guess, for me along the way as captain is that the difference week to week and the ebbs and flows of how I'm feeling, how the team's feeling, and really trying to find out week to week, what do we need as a collective here to get the job done.
And did you kind of, when you were captaining, did you sniff out what motivated certain individuals? Like, did you individually go, right, listen, this guy is motivated by X, this one's motivated by Y. Let's try and put that in front of them so we can get them to play an amazing game. Or was it more of a team kind of feel that it's more of a blanket feel, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think I learned so much along the way around like people. Essentially, I think when I was a young captain, that was probably one of my flaws is I probably didn't understand that as much. And I felt everybody should be the same. So even if after a game, for example, if you got beat, I was not fun to be around and stuff. Where other people were pretty much just the same, and rightly or wrongly, I'll get annoyed about that. But again, when you remove emotion and you start understanding people, it's like they're not they don't feel like that because they don't care any less than me. That's just how they feel. And I think that works, both ways as well. It's around that motivation pieces. Yeah, is the individual is who needs what to help them get motivated as well. But it's a fine line as well as when you're captain, because I think again when I was a younger captain, I maybe got lost in that a little bit at times, rather than worrying about myself first and foremost. Because if I can bring the best version of myself and lead by example, then that's ultimately probably the best way to lead.
And how did you gain the respect from the boys? Because like you have, 15 testosterone fueled big burly men. I'm sure there's some pretty difficult like personalities to kind of deal with. There's some pretty people. I mean, obviously looking at the Scotland team, like Finn's pretty out there. Like there's lots of different personalities that you're juggling there. How did you kind of monitor that and gain the respect that they kind of didn't talk back and they didn't talk shit and they didn't, kind of press you?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I think it's not about them not talking back because I'm not immune. Like I'm not above anybody else, and I think being open to being challenged. I guess it was hopefully one of my good strengths, and I always tried to anything that I was saying. I tried to do it. So you know, leading by example again, or I was like a stickler for like time management, like doing the right thing, recovery, whatever it was that that was really me, and leaving no stone unturned, to get the job done on the weekend. So I think I sort of gained respect, over the years, from players, and but I think that's that's one of the keys, isn't it, to being a good leader? It's like being open to being challenged, admitting you don't have all the answers and stuff like that, because that ultimately I think Finn and I, for example, over the years in training, we had a couple of bust ups. Because he's probably so relaxed, and he's like,
Mhm.
oh, don't worry about it, but I did worry about it.
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And so, but again, it's not because Finn didn't care any less. That was just the way he was. So I think, if sometimes they bust ups in front of the group, but then if you're, on talking terms straight after training, and you just shrug your shoulders, I thought it's a really good message at times for the group as well. That listen, Finn and Greg, for example, they're going to fall out because he sees it slightly different to him, and that's all right.
Yeah. And would you think he was the most difficult kind of personality to manage? Because I feel like the reason that Finn is so good is because he doesn't have that emotional tie as much as perhaps others. And I feel like but that unnerves people, the fact he's so relaxed. Because like obviously everyone in the rugby team really, really cares. But because he has this just like chilled out nature, it really can kind of get people uncomfortable that do really care.
It's a great point, isn't it? And I think sometimes that's obviously more for the coach, that stuff in terms of the actual management of him. But he was absolutely no dramas at all. Over the years I've worked with him, because when you get to understand Finn, he's a genuine great bloke as well. And he's a proper team man. And that's the thing that some people potentially get wrong with him. They think he's all about himself, and he's genuinely not. You look at his history and the teams he's went to, whether it's Glasgow, Racing Metro, Bath, the proper team man. So I think, like, his skill to be so relaxed on that big stage is one of his biggest strengths. As he kind of touched on there as well, and it's because that emotion, like, it's such a fine line. In international rugby at any level, really. Like, if you got on the wrong side of emotion, and I probably made this mistake as well, again, when I was a bit younger, and Finn really helped me with this. If you get on the wrong side of emotion, you're sort of blinding yourself. You've got the sort of glassy eyes. You start missing things. Because at the end of the day, it's a game of rugby, and I think I've always looked at, like, the All Blacks, and I think they've really got that right, the ability to really perform under pressure over the years. And I know that they've done a lot of work behind the scenes and how to be relaxed and play with no pressure and stuff like that. And Finn, he's one of the lucky ones because he can just seem to do it without caring.
He's got something wrong with him, that boy.
If you guys enjoyed that clip, please do me a huge favor before you go and head over to our Into the Mind podcast official page where we have the raw, uncut Into the Mind podcast, and hit that subscribe button. And the more subscribers we get, the more incredible guests we can get on the show. I really appreciate you guys for watching. Thank you so much. And I'll see you all real soon.